We left off last with God's blessing. You think it wasn't a blessing? Because we did talk about life and death, and most importantly, the blood. But God started it off as a blessing. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth." In other words, he blessed them with fruitfulness. It started off like that in verse 1 and ended off like that in verse 7. But today we continue. We continue as God speaks to Noah about some serious stuff. And I want to make a little point here. Maybe we've never, ever thought of it like this before. But I'm going to make a commentary afterwards. We continue reading, starting in verse 8 and ending in verse 11 in chapter 9. And God spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, see, he spoke to him, he didn't bless him. And behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you. That's us. That's all of us. We did originally stem from Noah right now, didn't we? All of us. And with every living creature that is with you. So he didn't just make a covenant with us. He made a covenant with every living creature. It continues, of the fowl, of the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark, to every beast of the earth. He didn't just make it to the cattle, he made it to the wild animals. He made a covenant. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. Let's see if I can unpack this for you in a very short commentary. After his short list of laws he wanted followed, which was the previous message, God made a serious covenant with Noah, his sons, and all life on earth. He said, behold, even I establish my covenant with you and your seed after you, and with every living creature, of the birds, of the cattle, of every beast of the earth, with you, from all that go out from the ark. You know, that's what we read. His promise or his covenant is, there shall never be any more a flood to destroy the earth. Okay, what can we say about this? God just said, I will never flood the earth ever again. Many of us will say, that's an easy promise to keep. The conditions nowadays preclude any kind of flooding. Couldn't happen again anyway. I mean, let's face it, look at all the stuff that went on, the deep rifts in the oceans, etc. But you know what? This is no idle, irrevocable promise. On February 8th, when we studied Genesis chapter 7, verse 11, we read about a 1997 discovery of the fountains of the deep. Here's a partial quote. Scientists have figured that if 60% of this layer of Wesleyite, okay, scientists have figured that if 60% of this layer is Wesleyite, as seismic data seem to indicate, it would contain enough water to fill 10 oceans. Researchers have also analyzed the amount of this water brought to the surface during volcanic eruptions like Mount St. Helens, etc., and concluded that there could be enough water deep in the earth to fill more than 20 oceans the size of the Atlantic. This was discovered by scientists who definitely do not believe in a universal flood. Folks, that's mind-boggling. What is my point here? My point is God's covenant would be meaningless if he did not have the resources to do it again instantly. A covenant is irrevocable by at least one of the parties between which a covenant is made. Notice, a wedding promise is a covenant. God promised to never again judge the earth and mankind with a flood, despite his knowledge that the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Remember in verse 21, chapter 8. To God, it was an unbreakable vow, but he had the power to break the vow. But God can't lie. This is something that we need to understand. God can't sin. So, this covenant he made never again to flood the earth is again all of God's grace.